If you are visiting Austria for the first time this year, make sure you watch this video because in it, I'll be sharing all the things first-timers need to know. Hi, I'm Christina from happytowonder.com, and Austria is to me one of the most underrated countries in Europe. I used to live just across the border over in Munich, Germany, so over the years I've gotten to know Austria pretty well, and so in this video I'm going to be sharing all my best tips and must-knows. Let's start with some basic Austria must-knows and travel planning tips. First things first, Austria is a Central European country with 9 different states. It is not Australia, the country known for kangaroos and koalas. Now, apparently this is a very common mistake that people make. I honestly don't understand how that's even possible because the countries to me couldn't be any more different. But if you go to any souvenir shops across Austria, there's always going to be one t-shirt or one magnet that's making fun of the fact that people get them mixed up. So know that it happens, but know that they are in fact different countries and don't get them mixed up. Now, in terms of where to go in Austria, I feel like there are some places that are super well known, but there's still parts of the country that are largely unknown by overseas visitors. Especially the nature part of Austria, I feel like is often overlooked, but there's actually so many beautiful mountains, lakes, and landscapes that are really worth seeing. Honestly, in some areas, I feel like Austria is a cheaper version of Switzerland, so it's really worth expanding your itinerary beyond just the typical tourist must-sees. Out of the states that I've personally visited, I think that Vorarlberg and Styria in particular are super underrated. I mean, Vorarlberg has amazing mountains and little alpine towns. Styria has the amazing second city of Austria, which is Graz, and it's also got lots of castles, spas, vineyards, beautiful landscapes all around. I also haven't made it to Carinthia, but I've heard that the lakes there are fantastic. So just generally speaking, every state in Austria has something really cool to offer. So be sure to try to expand your itinerary beyond just Salzburg and Vienna. Now, as for when to visit, I honestly don't think there's a terrible time to visit Austria, to be honest with you, apart from maybe peak summer season in the most busy touristy destinations. That said, one of the most underrated times to go to Austria, in my opinion, is for Christmas market season. So mid-November until Christmas. I know that Germany is well known around the world for their Christmas markets, but Austria does them tremendously well as well. So be sure to add that into your itinerary if you want magical Christmas markets, but maybe something a little bit different. In terms of language, the official language is German, so German is widely spoken across Austria, but you will be fine getting by with just English, especially in the larger cities. In the countryside, it might be a bit more difficult, but that's what Google Translate is for. In any case, it's important that you do know some of the basics just to be polite. So in terms of how to say hello and thank you, it's very easy. It's just hallo or danke for thank you. Or if you want to be a little bit fancier with your greeting, you can say grüß Gott. Now, that said, the German spoken in Austria might sound a little bit different to the German that you've heard elsewhere. Even within the country itself, there's different regional accents and dialects. So just be prepared for that. If things sound a little bit different to what you're used to, or if they're having trouble understanding you, don't take it personally. There's a lot of regional variations. Now, in terms of getting around, public transport in Austria is honestly super excellent and you don't necessarily need a car. My general rule of thumb would be if you're just going from city to city, just take public transport. That's going to be more than sufficient. But if you're going to be doing road trips, you want to see nature, you want to kind of get out and do some hikes, see some lakes, then that's when you're going to need to rent a car. If you are renting a car, one really important thing to know is that you do need something called a vignette, which is a sticker that you put on your car. And this is a sticker that you have to purchase in order to use the motorways. And it's very important if you're traveling from another country that you actually have this vignette on your car before you enter Austria, because the borders often have an automatic scanner. And if you don't have this sticker on your car when you enter the country, you might get a bill in the mail a few weeks later asking you to pay a fine. Luckily, the vignette's not too pricey. You can actually buy one for 10 days, 2 months, or a year, which is much better than Switzerland, where you're forced into buying an annual one no matter what. Now, public transport in Austria works based on an honor system, so it's up to you to buy the correct ticket, to validate that ticket, and then get on the train or the bus or whatever. And if someone comes past to ask for your ticket, then that's when you show it to them. So make sure you buy the right ticket and also validate it correctly as well. Now, if you plan to take public transport extensively, one ticket to look into is known as this Einfach raus ticket. And basically, this is a ticket that you can use for a group of up to 5, and it gives you unlimited travel on the train network for the entire day, which is really great, again, for day trips. And this can definitely save you a lot of money, especially if you're traveling in a big group. That said, there's also regional offers, so be sure to check out the OEBB website just to see the different ways that you can save money. Now, onto some culture and etiquette tips. The most important one is to never say to anyone that Germany and Austria are the same. I know that there are similarities and they both speak German and they're geographically next to each other, but Austrians are very proud of their country and they don't like it when you kind of just assume that they're German or say that they're the same thing as Germany. And honestly, as a Canadian who's often mistaken for American, I understand that completely. So just remember, Germany and Austria, not the same. Austria and Australia, also not the same. Another thing, most Austrians do not know the Sound of Music. I know if you're like me, you grew up on the Sound of Music, you love the landscapes, you love the songs. Trust me, Austrians A, have never watched it, or B, don't like it that much. So if you're striking up conversation with a local, don't try to bond over the Sound of Music, or don't tell them how excited you are to go to Salzburg to see the Sound of Music stuff, because odds are they're not really going to care that much. Instead, find another tourist and bond with them, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them eager to do the Sound of Music tour with you. Now, in terms of language, one really handy thing to keep in mind is that the W in German is pronounced like a V sound. Now, the most prominent example of this is going to be the German name of Vienna, which is Wien. It's not Wien, it's not Wien, it's Wien. And similarly, the most popular export from that city is the Wiener Schnitzel. It's Wiener Schnitzel, not Wiener Schnitzel, so be sure to pronounce it correctly because they can be a bit picky about that. Now, just like in Germany, Austrians tend to be very private people, so if you're out in public and you're taking photos, try your best not to get anybody's face in the shot because they can be quite touchy about that. They don't love being recorded without consent, so keep that in mind. Now, in contrast to that, Austrians really don't mind staring. So when you're traveling around the country, you might notice that Austrians will just stare at you while you're walking or while you're sitting on the bus. It's not necessarily because of what you look like or what you're wearing. It's just culturally, they don't see staring as rude. So they're looking over at you and they're staring at you. It's not like they're necessarily judging you. It's just that's the way things are. It's not rude. Now, tipping wise, tipping culture is definitely different in Austria compared to North America. It's not as pronounced. Tips are not as expected. And even when you do tip, it's fine to just kind of round up or do 5 to 10%. Now, on that note, something that is very different is the way that you tip in Austria. So whereas in North America, it's very common to leave some money on the table after the bill is paid, what you do in Austria is actually you tell them the total amount that you want to pay when you hand over your card or when you hand over your cash. So let's say if you wanted to pay 40 euros in total, including your tip, you give them a 50 euro bill and you'll say 40, and then they'll know to give you only 10 euros change back. That's the way it works. Don't wait until after the meal and leave money on the table because that's not really how they do it. And if you want them to keep the change, just hand over the bill and say stimmt so, and then they'll know that they don't need to give you any change back. Now, in terms of culture, it is often said that Austrians can seem a little bit cold and direct. So generally speaking, when you go to Austria, you're not going to get the kind of bubbly, friendly service that you get in North America. So if you go to a restaurant, it's very common for the waiter to just come, take your order, and then leave you alone. If you want anything else, you're going to have to get their attention. And the way that I've had this explained to me is really in Austria, the culture is so private. People really value their privacy. So really for them, if they're checking in on you constantly like they do in North America, that's actually considered rude because they're interrupting your personal private time. So just keep that in mind. If they don't come back for you, you need to get their attention because they're intentionally not wanting to invade your privacy. Now, funny enough though, despite all these stereotypes of being private and kind of being withdrawn, one thing that is very common in Austria actually is nudity. So especially if you're going to saunas, that's fully expected that you're going to be going in there naked. And if you're going to any swimming areas like lakes or rivers, there's often designated nude zones, and it's not uncommon to see both men and women alike sunbathing topless. It's just a cultural difference. If it's not something that you're used to, just keep that in mind and don't be shocked when you see it because it is very common. They're just kind of like free about their bodies over there. All right, now let's move on to some food and drink tips for Austria. The first thing I'll say is definitely eat as much dessert as possible when you're there. Honestly, Austria is like the king of desserts, the king of sweets and baked goods. There is so much to enjoy. I'm sure coming from abroad, you've probably heard of strudel before, but strudel is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much more to enjoy. So make sure you go into a bakery and you go into a coffee house, kind of examine the goodies and let your senses guide you because there are so many wonderful options. On that note, be sure to try regional specialties wherever you go. I know that Austria is not a huge country, but within those 9 states, they have a lot of culinary diversity. So be sure to try the different regional specialties and don't just assume you should be getting schnitzel everywhere because there's a lot more to try beyond just that. For instance, there's crispy fried chicken known as Backhandel in Styria, which is really fantastic. They also do a lot with pumpkin seed oil, like pumpkin seed pesto, which is really tasty. Käsespätzle is another really amazing specialty that they serve a lot in the different Alpine towns. They're basically these little doughy balls of dumpling that are just doused in cheese and onion, and it's amazing. It's definitely a must try. And other regions do a lot of things with fish dishes. Some work miracles with potatoes, all to say every region has their own specialties, so be sure to give them a try. Now, on that note, when you're in Austria, definitely try more wine than beer, because despite its proximity to Germany, I actually feel like Austria is much more of a wine country. There's a lot of really beautiful wine regions, especially in the eastern part of the country and also in parts of Vorarlberg, but the wine there is so delicious. And if you're looking for a soft drink, this Almdudler, so good. It is such a delicious fizzy drink. If you're not into drinking alcohol, be sure to give that one a try. As a final food tip, don't order your schnitzel with sauce. I've heard that they can be very touchy about this. In Germany, it was quite common for us to do this, I have to admit, so I used to eat my schnitzel with mushroom sauce or with the special sauce on top. Apparently, in Austria, this is quite sacrilegious, so just don't do it. All right, lastly, let's cover some tips for once you arrive in Austria. The first one is to bring cash with you. So a lot of places will accept card these days in Austria, but still predominantly cash is still king. I definitely recommend bringing cash in smaller denominations as well. I know that you can get euro bills that are up to 200 or 500 euros. Most smaller shops will have trouble accepting that, so just try to keep your denominations to 50 or under for smaller purchases and your life will be way easier. On that note, also make sure you have a few coins on you because public washrooms in Austria do cost money to use, even at rest stops on the highway. So make sure you have coins because often it'll cost like 50 cents or €1 to use the washroom. Another thing is to not jaywalk. Jaywalking is illegal in Austria as it is in many countries, but the difference is here they actually tend to enforce it. So definitely don't jaywalk and play it safe. The last thing to be aware of is that Sundays are a day of rest in Austria. So oftentimes the shops, even supermarkets, will be closed on Sundays. So if you need to do any shopping, make sure you do it before Sunday. The only exceptions are maybe bakeries, restaurants, and sometimes different grocery stores and shops in public transport hubs, so like train stations or airports. Otherwise, you can expect all grocery stores and all shops to be shut on Sunday, so don't get caught out without food. All right, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found those tips helpful, and as usual, feel free to chime in the comments if you have any more tips or any questions, and be sure to subscribe for more practical travel videos just like this one. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!